Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the Cold Fusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Good morning. Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition. September 24th this week, and I'm flying solo. I had a little late start here, but we got lots of news for you before next week, the big week. CF Summit is coming. So let's jump straight into it. So first off, Adobe Security Bulletin, Cold Fusion 2018 Update 5 and Cold Fusion 2016 Update 12 is being released. So this is a big security fix. Please check that out. These updates resolve two critical and one important vulnerability that could lead to arbitrary code execution. So these are very important. Make sure you get those updated immediately. Brad also tweeted that they snuck in some non-security features to 2018. So the fat arrow support is one of them, and some more information can be found in the blog post. There's a coldfusion.adobe.com has a blog post released on it, and the helpx.adobe.com has a security product page as well. You can get all the information from there. So those are definitely very important. One big thing to notice here is that 2018 and 2016 were included, but CF11 was not included. So last time there was a big security update, we noticed that they actually made the update and rolled it backported it for CF11 as well. We thought maybe this is a good sign, and if that's the case, this one not being there is probably a bad sign. So if you're on CF11, please make those upgrade set up. And 2016, 2018 is obviously out and available, and they're ready to be updated, and 2020 is coming soon. But if you're on CF11 or 9 or 8 or any of the other versions, it's time to upgrade for sure. So big vulnerabilities mean big trouble. So please jump into that, get that taken care of as soon as you can. And if you need help and support, Adobe can help you there. So next in the news, we see Fusion Reactor released 8.2.1. So this fixed a number of pesky bugs as they put out, and we've had a couple of blog posts recently about some recent bugs, so I'm not sure which of those have been fixed, but if you go to fusionreactor.com/download, you can see where you can download the new version, and there's also a link to find out all the information about that release of all the fixes and updates. So Fusion Reactor is moving along nicely. Another thing, surprisingly, from Adobe, we're seeing quite a few blog posts recently, and we'll mention those in the blog section, but CF Mobile development is still alive. So I haven't heard anything about, CF Mobile and CF Client for quite some time, but just a few blog posts recently shows that Adobe's been updating their CF Mobile development piece, and so they've added some more server-side functionality and tried to update that. So I'm not sure what exactly they've updated, but there's two blog posts. Uday Olga, which I believe is speaking at CF Summit, has a couple of blog posts out. One is building server-side functionalities, rich mobile application using new CF Mobile features. And there's another one, support for server-side tags and functions in CF Mobile development. So if you guys are doing mobile development and you're curious how Cold Fusion is doing this to help you on their side, these two blog posts are available. They're both on coldfusion.adobe.com. So if you're interested or curious, go check those blog posts out. And like I said, it's kind of an interesting thing because I haven't heard anything about it for a while, and as Brad just said in the chat, he thought that they admitted that was a mistake. But anyways, a couple of blog posts there. Thought that was pretty interesting. So go check that out, guys. And see how they do it, and compare to what you're doing. Okay, well, that's the main news for right now. So the next up is our Summit news. So CF Summit is next week. So 30th is Monday, the pre-conference. The conference itself is actually the 1st and 2nd, Monday and Tuesday. And guess what? The early bird prices are still available. So if you're last minute early bird, you can still get the prices for $99. So if you haven't got your ticket, obviously you're running out of time. Next week is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be held at the Mirage, 1st and 2nd of October. Tuesday, Wednesday is the main conference. The training beforehand is on the 30th, and it's going to be a good event. I'm getting prepared to head out there. Luis, Brad, Eric, and myself are going to be there with several Adobe speakers and a lot of community members. It's going to be a good time. If you're still thinking about going and you're not sure if you can pull it, the cfsummit.adobeevents.com speakers has a list of all the speakers. You can see all the sessions and get your ticket. Like I said, it's pretty close now, so you better hurry if you're going to make a last minute adjustment there. Now, they do have workshops as well. So we have been talking about the Adobe ColdFusion Specialist Certificate Program. So that's one of the pre-conference options. It does require some homework before you get there. So if you're signing up this late, you're going to have a lot of videos to watch this week. But there is a couple of extra sessions as well. So you can do Pete Freitag's hands-on ColdFusion security workshop, or going from 0 to 60 with Docker and ColdFusion images with Charlie Earhart. And I had a blog, we had blog posts on his site about that session, and I also had a soapbox episode talking about that. And then Adobe ColdFusion team is also doing a performance monitoring toolset workshop. So there's 3 trainings in addition to the specialist program if you'd like to do beforehand. But also, if you want to do training after, you can do training with Ortus Solutions. So Ortus Solutions, that's me, Eric, who are going to be doing the ColdBox 0 to Hero training after the conference, so on the Thursday and Friday. And Brad Wood and Luis Mahano are going to do ColdBox from Hero to Superhero, the API edition, right after as well. And that is Thursday and Friday, and we're going to be holding that at the Area Tower Suites, which is just behind the Strip, just not far from the Mirage at all. We're going to have a nice cozy setup. I think we're almost full, but there might be a seat or 2 left if you guys are still planning on going and you're trying to get some boot camp training as well. We might have a couple of spots available there. If you go to ortussolutions.com, and you should see them on the main carousel, so you can click and register there. Those are going to be Thursday, Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And so great sessions, a lot of fun. And if you use the podcast 10 discount code, you can get a 10% off the training there. Coming up a little bit later in October, Luis Mahano is going to be in Bangalore, India, and his training there is actually sold out. So unfortunately, there aren't any spots left. We even extended it a little bit, and he sold out. But it's going to be a great session, and I'm curious to see how that goes there. I know that Luis is really looking forward to doing some training in India. So if you guys are interested in finding out more about it, or maybe meeting up with Luis, hit him up on Twitter, and maybe he'll have time to, have a little meet up, and you'd like to meet some ColdFusion members in the area. So that'll be great. But at the same time, if you're not in India, you're over in Europe, CF Camp is going to be going on October 17th and 18th. So CF Camp is looks like a great lineup this year. It's the 10th anniversary of CF Camp. So I can't believe they've been going that long, but they're still going strong, and this looks like it's going to be probably one of the best ones. We got a lot of great speakers, a lot of great content. Eric Peterson, Jorge Reyes, and Brad Wood from Ortus will be there, and there's a lot of great community members. Charlie Earhart, Nolan Erk, and a lot of the usuals, but also a lot of new faces too. A lot of great content. So if you'd like, you can go up there, cfcamp.org/sessions.html available, and the schedule has even been released. So they've been holding that tight to their chest, and they've finally released the schedule. They promise not too many changes are going to happen, but there's always a few. But if you guys want to check out what sessions are available and what times, you can go ahead and check that out on cfcamp.org as well. Now, there is training before CF Camp. There's still some spots left on Ortus's training. So we're running the ColdBox Hero to Superhero. Brad Wood's going to be running that training. And then Eric Peterson is going to do a BDD with Testbox training. And those are 2 days prior. So 15th and 16th of October is the training. And then 17th and 18th is the conference. Now, if you're not in the mood for the Ortus trainings, there's also a PresideCon, which is like a Preside conference, just a 1-day conference on October 16th. And there's a couple of other little pre-conferences too. Well, I'm not sure about little, sorry, but 2 other pre-conferences. One is Centralize Your Logs with Elastic Stack on October 16th. And there's another one which is Get Into Linux, which I believe is just an afternoon on October 16th as well. If you go to cfcamp.org, you can click on pre-conferences and find out all of the details of those there. So if you're interested in the Ortus camps, like I said, we do have a couple of spots left. They are going pretty fast. You got a couple of weeks to get everything located for that. So 15th and 16th, the conference is 17th and 18th. So Brad and Eric are getting all prepped for that. I know they're excited, and CF Camp's always a good time. Okay, so now that's sort of the quick summary of our conferences there. So let's get into some of the blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. We have quite a few this week, as usual. The first one is a tweet from Brad Wood. Obviously, he wanted to call out that there was something missing from those Adobe security patches. So his tweet says, new security patches from Adobe, and one thing is missing from the previous patches, ColdFusion 11. Only 2016 and 18 were patched, which is a sign that CF11 users are now in the dark. Kick that upgrade in gear. So good point, Brad. But he also did get to play with some of the updates too. So he said ColdFusion 2018 Update 5 included more than security patches. It also has the so-called fat arrow syntax support. So if you guys have used JavaScript, you've probably seen fat arrows. ES6, has them. And so it's, just a shorter syntax. And he said he was able to test it a little early, and it's fairly solid. But he did find a few bugs, and he reported them to Adobe for fixing. So, but for those of you, I know that fat arrows are pretty exciting coming to language. I know Lucy supports them, but now ColdFusion is trying to catch up on their support there too. So, pretty cool. Also, we had a blog from Ben Adel. He just jumped on the upgrade bus, and so he was talking about how he upgraded his local blog site from ColdFusion 10 to 2018. So he says, ColdFusion is generally backwards compatible, so he thought it'd be a pretty easy transition, but he did run into some issues. So this blog post talked about how when he was using Java Loader, he gained some weird issues because he couldn't find the real obvious solution, and then he realized that the Java Loader needs access to internal ColdFusion Java components in 2018, and there's some security that locks it down. So obviously, lockdown is a good thing, but you need to find that, and he didn't see a whole lot of results when he was searching Google for the answer, so he shared his settings and his findings there. So hopefully, if you guys are upgrading, you won't have the same problem with Java Loader. And so obviously his blog post is on benadel.com, and the links will be in the show notes. Also, Pete Freitag blogged about passing environment variables into sudo command. So for those of you working in Linux a lot, obviously you use sudo a lot to make sure you have the right privilege to run commands. And sometimes you need to be passing variables into your sudo commands. And he wanted to let you know that if you're starting a new environment, when you run sudo, basically you are starting a new environment with the root user, so previous shell environment variables don't get passed in. So he says there's a couple of ways to get around it, and he spells it out on his blog. So petefreitag.com/item/877.cfm, and you guys can see how to work around that. Now, we also had another blog post from Michael Bourne. So this one is titled, Adobe, you piece of work, I'm through. So it sounds like a little bit of a baity title there, and his opening paragraph states, lest that title and opening surprise or scare you, but let me put it simply, I'm fed up with Adobe's handling of Adobe ColdFusion. The product stinks. The support and marketing stinks. This recent bait and switch pricing tactic is the last straw. So this blog post does let you know what he really thinks. But one thing is not just ranting and raving and saying, he's sick of them. He gives you some good reasons. So he talks about, some of the functionality of Adobe ColdFusion, and then he talks about, some of the bug fixes and, how they deal with the bugs and the tracker in general, and talks about the bait and switch pricing. So obviously we talked about the scandalous, the EULA pricing issues recently, and so he talks more about that as well. So he just gives a bunch of reasons that he's supporting Lucy and no longer wants to support Adobe. So obviously everyone's open to their own opinion, but if you wanted to get some information, he's got a lot of stuff there. So if you want to do some research on that, he has some good information. And obviously he's just letting everybody know why he thinks what he thinks. And Michael's been doing a lot of work lately in the community, and so it's interesting to see his point of view. He also has been doing some Twitch live streams lately as well. So if you guys follow him on Twitter, you'll probably see when he's going to get his Twitch stream up and running. And I think he's going to be running another one at 6 p.m. Central on Wednesday. So if you guys are interested in, he's got a pretty cool little stream. He's just sort of live coding, and if you guys want to jump on there, it's pretty fun. Okay, we also have another blog post from iSummation. So this is titled CFML Functional Programming Approach. So basically, this one's kind of interesting, just talking about how, usually programmers do a lot of work copying and pasting. And, we've always done that and whatever. But basically, it's never too late to start doing things right. And so he's talking about functional programming and, what it is and how it applies to Cold Fusion, and, how you can sort of step up your code or improve things. So it was pretty interesting. A good little starting point. He's got a couple links out to some other places. But if you guys don't know what functional programming is, maybe that's a good place to start. So, and obviously we support modernizing, Cold Fusion, and this is one way to do it. Functional programming is pretty neat, and you can do some pretty cool things with it, making it more understandable, but also cleaner code. So check that out. I did mention earlier that the CF Mobile stuff is being blogged about a little bit. So we have those two blog posts by Uday Ogra, who is speaking at CF Summit, I confirmed. So one is building a server-side functionalities rich mobile application using CF Mobile features. So this basically builds a simple mobile application that extensively uses those server-side tags and functionalities. So that one runs you through that. And then there's another one which is talking about the support for server-side tags and functions in CF Mobile development. In that article, they talk about the recent changes to CF Mobile, which helps in developing end-to-end mobile applications. So this is pretty interesting. As Brad mentioned before, the previous lead on CF Mobile and CF Client was actually Ram, and he had left years ago. So it was interesting that they've made some changes there. So I wonder what the new life has been put in there. So if you want to check those out, those are on coldfusion.adobe.com. And if you look for CF Mobile, I'm sure those will pop up. We also have another one from Pete Freitag talking about development SSL TLS with command box. So Pete was talking about how he's been working on upcoming training, so the one at CF Summit, the Cold Fusion security training class. And usually he has it in a VM to make it real easy for you. Download the VM before you get there, and then you spin up the VM and everything you need is in there. So it's really neat. He basically wanted to, since he's a big fan of command box, wanted to set it up fully using command box instead of using Apache and the CF installer. So he's gone through that process. And so in order to teach certain sections, they need HTTPS. So he basically gave you a quick rundown how you set it up on Linux. And therefore, if you're on a Mac, most of those steps will work too. So if you wanted to check that out, that's at petefreitag.com/item/876.cfm. So it's a good little walkthrough and shows you what you need to do to get everything up and running SSL locally. Now, another tweet from Jay is Painting. Now, I'm not sure who that is, but Jay is Painting is the Twitter name. But he said, "Hey, look, one of my tweets is in a Roy Hunt blog post. No, really, go look and implement the lithnet_io AD plus have I been pwned or pwned code." So, basically, if you guys remember, Troy Hunt's done a lot of blog posts about the, all the passwords being owned, and there's millions of passwords out there that have been, basically found out and most used and whatnot. And so he's got a good blog post there. And the tweet continues saying, if you run CFML on Cold Fusion or Lucy, you can grab his HIVP/CFC password checker. And so he's got a github.com/JisPainting, and there's actually a repo there which has a little tool to check to see if you've been owned. So if your password's been, corrupted. And so we've got the link here in the show notes to get to his Twitter, the actual tweet, and then from there his Twitter account as well. And so if you guys are doing anything with security, and you're not using a password checker, you may want to look at this little option. And this basically checks to make sure that your password that someone is trying to use is not one of the most, one owned, but also most commonly owned passwords out there. So it's another little check you can add to your validation. So it's pretty neat. Okay. We also have the blog post. So if you do want to find out more about those passwords, I guess it's version 5 now. So 2 years to the day, he wrote about Passwords Evolved, the authentication guidance for the modern era. And basically, that blog post that Troy wrote was, built up on top of NIST, NCSC, and then Microsoft, and how you should be doing authentication today. And so that blog post is at troyhunt.com/owned passwords version 5 with dashes. So PWNED-passwords-version-5. And that sort of gives you a rundown on everything in the version 5 there. And if you scroll down there, you can see Jay's Paintings tweet in that blog post. So Evagoras has also been busy blogging some more. So he has a ForgeBox ColdBox module that he just released for Lucy Server 5.33 for scheduled tasks. So he was working on a scheduled task user interface and decided, he would basically build that up and, make it work just like the administrator. So he couldn't find one, so he built one. And he pretty much did it with Bootstrap and jQuery, and he threw it up there as a module on ForgeBox. So if anybody else needs a module to help look after their Lucy scheduled tasks, they can just install this from ForgeBox. And so if you go to evagoras.com, you can find that blog post how we talked about this ColdBox module for the Lucy server, just to do all that. Thanks again for building that and sharing it. It's good to see the community, helping out here and there. Okay, there was also a tweet here from Brad Wood. I'm not sure who he is. He was tweeting that the latest version of commandbox.env 1.7.1 lets you have a global .box.env file that loads default variables into the CLI every time you start it, regardless of which working directory you're in. So basically, if you always have a Lucy password that you want on every server, now you can put this in your home directory, your squiggly /.box.env, and then now you'll have all your set passwords and maybe your settings for mail servers or whatever else that you want to use for everything can be added into that box.env, and then those environment variables will be available for every single site that you start up in CommandBox. So that's pretty neat. And if you remember, Lucy 5.3.4 no longer allows you to set the password for an administrator or Lucy administrator from the URL in the browser. So you have to set one another way. And so if you have that, now every time you start up a site, the password's already set. You don't have to worry about it. So pretty good. Okay. So we only have one job listed on Twitter this week, and that was another post for that Cold Fusion software developer, which is full-time for Webstaurant store in Tampa, Florida. So the job description starts saying, looking for the startup feel, but with a well-established, still rapidly growing company. Do you desire to work on a variety of projects? Want to become an integral part of forming a development team at a satellite location in Tampa due to expansion? This is an opportunity for you. So obviously the link is from getcfml.jobs.com. If you go check that out, they have a lot more details. It's got a pretty good description there, and you can find out more about the company. Webstaurantstore.com/careers and find out more about them. But looks like a good opportunity for a Cold Fusion developer if you're looking for work in the Florida area. Okay, let me just check the chat and see what's going on here. Okay. Sounds like everyone's just talking a little bit about the CF Mobile, and InLeak looks like they're talking about updating their Docker guide. And if you guys are using Docker, by the way, Sam Knowlton over at InLeak has been working on this Docker guide and sort of documenting some of the things they're doing and making it available. We'll have to share that link soon. I'll have to get it, but I know he's been working hard on that, and they're just talking about that. So pretty cool. Okay, so let's move on to the ForgeBox module of the week. So this is a module I use all the time, and if you're using ContentBox, you're probably using it. And if you're using CBORM, you're definitely using it. So the module of the week this week is CB validation. So this module allows you to have a server-side rules validation engine that can provide you with a single approach for, working with objects, structs, and form validation. It's a pretty cool setup. We use a lot with CBORM, as I mentioned. So if you have an object in CBORM, you can set a constraint struct inside of your object, and then you can use CB validation to say, hey, validate my object. And so for each field in your object, it can have if it's required or not, what the type is. You can even set up your own custom validators. So maybe if you're doing a password validation, you can make sure that the password is not on that list from that CFC we mentioned earlier in that Troy Hunt blog post. So the custom validator allows CB validator to know what to call to go and get the validation. And what it does is when you call a validate on an object or a struct, it'll give you back a list of the issue. So if you have a form validation, for example, and all your variables are in a struct, so they're the URL scope, form scope, etc. Or if you're using CodeBox, it would be inside of the RC scope. Then what you could do is say, hey, I want to validate the RC struct, and you could give it a list of all the requirements. And so you can say this field is required, this field is required with a minimum length, etc. You could say this field is required, the maximum value of this. So you can pass all those in as a struct. It's just basically a struct with all the validation rules you have, and then it gives you back a list of all the problems. So you could use that and to spit back a list of errors or whatnot, and quickly validate your form. It's really nice. We've been doing a lot of work with that, tying into things like CB security as well, and so we've doing a big push on that lately with Ortus, and so the CB validation module's been updated recently. So there's been, basically 65,000 installs of the CB validation module. We're up to like version 17 now, I believe, since we've moved this over to FORGEBOX. So it's a great little module, and like I say, just simple little things like everyone writes validation rules. I think it's pretty important to have the one way to do things. So this gives you a whole lot of code that you don't have to worry about rewriting every time you do form validation or whatnot. The cool thing about it too is those rules are simple enough now that Andrew and I actually had an idea about creating something for the front end to be able to fire off, use the same rules. So I think we should build something, because I think it'd be nice if we had like a view module that basically read in CB validation constraints and actually use them inside view validate or something like that. It'd be pretty neat. Then you could have the same sort of rules front and back. So anyway, CB validation, you can box install CB validation, and it's available on FORGEBOX. So go there and check out the documentation. But it's definitely a cool module and save you a lot of time. Don't reinvent the wheel, people. Okay. So the VS Code hints, tips, and tricks of the week. Today, I'm going to talk about regex previewer. So if you know me, you probably know I don't like regex very much. It's always hard to remember. It's hard to know what matches. And so this little plugin, basically the extension, allows you to have regex on one pane. So if you have a side-by-side document open, you can have a document open on the right-hand side, and then as you type the regex on the left, it'll actually go and show you, highlight on the right-hand side, which of those values actually match. So it's one of those things that's pretty neat. I know that regexer.com is a pretty cool tool, and if you haven't used that, I definitely recommend it for regex. But it's kind of nice that you could do this straight inside your VS Code. So in your second document, just be a text file or something with a bunch of options, and as you type in your regex, you can see them match. So it's called Regex Previewer. It's by Christoph Marti. It's got about 120,000 downloads, 5 stars. Sounds like a pretty cool little tool. And again, if you're using much regex, nice little neat little thing to add to VS Code just to make your life a little easier. Okay, so with that done, we get to the Patreon. So again, we like to support, thank all our supporters. The Patreon supporters, help us help Ortus Solutions run things like this this podcast, FORGEBOX, and all of our open source documentation and products. So we thank them. Without you guys, it'd be hard to do this. And obviously, we appreciate all the support, whether it's a pull request, documentation, or Patreon accounts as well. Now, Patreon does have a lot of different packages. If you guys are a Patreon supporter, there are different options. So if you're an individual, there's smaller packages. If you're a business, there's bigger packages too with different benefits. So if you go to the Ortus Solutions site under /about us /sponsors, you can see the whole page, and it gives you a link to Patreon, which you can see all the different levels. We have Star Wars themed packages, so if you want to become a Jedi or Padawan, it's up to you, but we do support. We thank you, all of you, for your support. And if you guys are at CF Summit or CF Camp, come and talk to us, come and say hi, let us know. We'd like to meet you guys. A lot of the names on this list we've met before, but some of you guys are newer, and we want to say thank you in person too, so we appreciate it. So I'm going to run through the list real quick. Thanks Andrew Davis, Brian White, Calvin Stanton, Dali, Dan Card, Daniel Garcia, David Bellinger, Didier Lesnicki, Don Bellamy, Eric Hoffman, Gary Knight, Jan Yannick, Jeremy Adams, John Farrar, Jordan Clark, Joseph Lamery, Laxma Tidrahadi, Matthew Clemente, Richard Herbert, Samuel Knowlton, Scott Steinbeck, VJ, and Yogesh Mathur. So we thank you all. Really appreciate everything you're doing to help support the community and all the solutions, and hopefully we're doing everything we can to make it worth it for you guys. So I know it's short and sweet. You've had to hear me blabber on this whole time. Sorry, a little late start here, so it threw off the other hosts. So sorry, Brad and Andrew. I couldn't get everything running earlier, but hopefully you guys still enjoyed this. And next week, CF Summit, we hope to have a special live episode for you. Not sure of the timing yet or the location, but we'll get it out there. So make sure you guys like and subscribe this on YouTube to get that instant notification when we go live. And hopefully we'll have something a little special for you there. If you're there, please come say hi to me, Brad, Andrew. Obviously, there's a lot of other Ortus people there. We're bringing a whole group. We have a booth there, so come say hi. And looking forward to it. So thanks everybody for listening, and hopefully I'll see a lot of you next week. Thanks everybody. Have a good one. Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.